Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we're going to be learning how to cut a fitted palazzo pant. Alright, so this is going to be a rough sketch measurement, and I'm going to be making use of this pattern paper to teach you how to do this. So if you listen attentively and follow the process, you will definitely learn how to cut a fitted palazzo pant at the end of this class. Okay, so this are the measurement that I'm going to be working with. I'm going to put it on the screen so that you all can see it. Okay, so basically this pattern paper signifies the front pattern paper for my pant. And remember, when you're cutting this on your fabric, you have to place your fabric on fold. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark out the necessary lines. I'm going to mark out my waistline, then my hip line, my crotch line, my knee length, and the full length of the pant. So now I've gone down by half of an inch to mark out my waistline. Alright, this half of an inch just signify the allowance for joining the band. All right, so after doing that, I'm going to mark out my hip line, and ensure that you subtract your band away before marking out your hip line. So yeah, I'm going to be taking away 1.5 inch band. So your hip divided by 4 will give you your hip point. So if your hip point is 10, just minus 1.5 away from it and then mark out your hip. Ensure that you minus your band. If you want your band to be 2 inches, you minus 2 inches from 10, and then that will give you 8. Then you mark 8 as your hip point. All right, afterward you're going to go down by 1 inch or 1.5 inches for your crotch line. All right, and afterward you're going to take your knee length measurement and then the full length of the pant. So I'm going to just be making use of this pattern paper as the full length of the pant. So this was what I explained earlier. Ensure you subtract your band. This is it. I'm explaining it again. So ensure you subtract your band depending on how many inches band you want to subtract. So this is 1.5 I'm doing here. From there I'm marking at my hip point, so that's my hip point, and then my crotch length, and then my knee length, and then the full length of the trouser. So this pattern paper is, I'm just going to assume that this is the full length of the trouser. So this is, as I said earlier, this is just a rough sketch. Okay, so having done that, the next thing you want to do is to divide your hip by 4. So your hip circumference divided by 4, you're going to impute it there, and then you add your sewing allowance. Your hip circumference divided by 4, then you add your sewing allowance, because you want the trouser to be fitted. There is no need as in ease. So if you don't want it to be too fitted, you can go ahead and add like half of an inch ease, and then your sewing allowance. So after marking that out, what you have to do next is to ensure that whatever measurement you have on that crotch extension, you're going to take it up to your hip and also take it up to your waistline too. After doing that, you ensure that you connect the dots together with a straight line. Just ensure that whatever you have from your crotch line, you're extending it up to your waistline and then connecting the dot with a straight line. Then afterward, you impute your crotch extension. And to get your crotch extension is your hip circumference divided by 16 will give you a perfect crotch extension. So having done that, the next thing you have to do now is to take the full measurement from your crotch area to your crotch starting line, right? Yes. So you take the midpoint of that crotch area, and then whatever midpoint you have there, you mark it down to the length of your pant. So I think I'm having about 3.5 inches here. So I'm going to mark 3.5 inches all the way down. So I'm working with this particular pattern paper. So if you're cutting your own pant, I'm assuming that your pant should be longer than my pattern paper. So just mark whatever you have, mark it all the way down. Okay. Alright, at this point, if you're working with your lap measurement, you can come down by 3 inches from your crotch extension and then impute your lap measurement at that particular point. But yeah, I'm not working with my lap measurement. I'm just going to be going straight to my knee length, and whatever I have within my knee length, I'm going to divide it into 2 and also divide it again into 2. That is to say, whatever I have, I'm going to divide it in 4. So take for instance, I have 8 divided by 2, this is 4. I'm also going to divide this 4 again into 2. So I'm going to go ahead again and divide the 4 into 2, and then I'm going to have 2. So whatever I have now, I'm going to impute half 2 at one point and then the other 2 at the other side. So I'm just going to do, because I'm going to follow from the first midpoint and impute the 2 and then half of an inch sewing allowance, and then I'm going to take it to the other side and also impute the 2.5 of an inch sewing allowance, which is automatically give me 2.5 inches. So whatever I have there, I'm going to take it down all the way to my trouser length. So whatever you have on your knee length, whatever you impute on that knee length, just take it down straight to your trouser length. So should in case you're working with your lap measurement, just the same way we did for the knee measurement, you divide it into 4 and partition it into 2. That's the same way you do for your lap measurement. If you haven't done that, the next thing we're going to work on right now is the waist circumference. So on the waist, I'm going to divide my waist circumference into 4 and mark it out, and then add my sewing allowance. Then after doing that, I'm going to go ahead to connect all those dots downwards. So just watch the way I did it. I'm going to mark from the waist circumference to the hip. So take note of how I place my curve from the waist circumference to the hip, and then I'm going to connect it all the way downward. And also on the crotch extension, I'm going to connect it all the way downward, and then I will ensure that there's no pointy line. Any area that has a sharp edge, I'm just going to blend it in. Okay, so this is what we have for the front band, and as I said, this is just a rough sketch. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to go up on the waistline and slant it down by half of an inch. You can do 1 inch depending, so I'm going to slant it down by half of an inch and then go up by half of an inch. Also, this will serve as my sewing allowance to join it to the band. All right, so having done that, this is it for the front. I'm just gonna go ahead to cut this out. So afterward, we're going to go on and work on the back piece. So I've gone ahead to bring another pattern paper for the back piece, and then I'm going to take the front piece and place it on the back piece. Ensure that when you're cutting this on your fabric is folded into 2. So we are going to be having the right leg and the left leg. All right, so when you place your front piece on your back piece, ensure there's space at the upper part and also at the crotch extension area. So what we have to do is to go up, just look at my hand, go up by 1.5 or 2 inches depending on how big the person butt is. That's just go up at the crotch extension area by 1.5 or 2 inches. So in this place, I'm just going out by 1 inch. All right, and then I'm going to slant it into the waist area. So from that 1 inch that you went up from, we're going to create a straight line to meet the crotch extension for the front. So where the front cross extension stop, you're just going to draw a straight line from that 1 inch to meet that particular point. And afterward, I'm going to, from that same 1 inch create a slanted line into the hip area. Having done that, I'm going to go to the crotch extension area and mark out the crotch extension for the back. So whatever extension you place on your front, you're just going to take note of it and also extend it to the back area. So now I've imputed my back crotch extension. I'm going to connect it with a straight line and then draw out the curve. So having done that, I'm going to go towards the leg of the trouser, and then I'm going to add 1 inch for the back extension for the leg. So you can, I love using 1 inch max because this is more like a fitted palazzo pant and I don't want it to be too big. All right, so you can do 3/4 of an inch, but I just prefer 1 inch. I don't know if 1.5 is gonna work well. I prefer 1 inch because I don't want the palazzo pant to be too wide at the leg area. So I'm just going to connect the lines, the dots together to form a straight line and smoothing out any sharp edge that I have towards that area. So having done that, I think we've come to the end of the drafting of the back piece, and I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out. So there are several ways to cut this fitted palazzo pant, but this is one of the easiest methods to just go about cutting a fitted palazzo pant. And when sewing this, don't forget to impute your band and also impute your sewing allowance at the leg of the trouser. That's your hemming allowance. So don't forget to add your hemming allowance. So right now, just go ahead to cut this out. Okay, so I haven't done that. I have my front piece for my trouser, and I have my back piece for my trouser. And remember that when you're cutting this on your fabric, don't forget to place your fabric on fold, because at the end of cutting this out, you're supposed to have two pieces. That's the right leg and the left leg, both for the front and the back. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If this was helpful, kindly like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye guys.